My name is Matjaz Dolinar. I'm from ELES Slovenian TSO. I know it's quite late and I'm the last one, but and that you are tired. But on the other hand, I'm lucky that all the other TSOs and all the other participants have already explained a lot of things, and so I'll be able to refer to them later on. What I would like to explain is how we cope with the changes in Slovenian grid. Well, like all the TSOs, we have quite a lot of different system services. Some of them are relating to the frequency control, like the frequency containment reserve, the AFRR, MFRR. What might be a little bit specific for Slovenia is that we do not use the RR, but we have some kind of other service that is balancing market operated by Brazil. And of course, we have some other services that are not related to frequency control, like the voltage control, backstart, redispatching, and so on. For the primary control, I'll refer to the old names, sometimes to the old, sometimes to the new ones. For the primary control, the SCR, the typical reserve that we have is around 13 to 18 megawatts. For the AFRR, it's plus minus 60 megawatts, and for the MFRR, it's plus 250 megawatts and minus 71 megawatts. That are the values for the 2019, because the values change from year to year. And here I'd like to spend just a word or two about the developments in the reserve dimensioning, because actually the reserve requirement has changed considerably in the last few years with the regulation from SOGL and also from SAFA. We obtained the required reserves that are lower than the ones that we used to procure. And for the AFRR, it's 60 instead of 80 megawatts, and especially there was a considerable reduction in reserves for tertiary control because of the reserve sharing between the control block of Slovenia, Croatia, and Bosnia. So the reserves were reduced from almost 350 to 250 megawatts. And at least from the TSO's perspective, this is good because it increased the liquidity of the market. About the development of the ancillary service market in Slovenia, where we were just a few years ago. I'll also refer to 2015, which is incidentally the start of FutureFlow. Our ancillary service market were, let's say, a very basic one. We had three generation companies, one of which was almost tiny. So two real generation companies, and very low liquidity on all markets of ancillary services. But where we're going is to change the rules in such a way to enable other to participate, namely the batteries, the RTG, and to have the liquidity in all the markets. The major milestones are certainly the biggest one is the guideline on electricity balancing. And the result of the requirement there are the new terms and conditions for the BSPs that were approved by our NRA in 2019. Here we have to say that we opened the rules quite considerably to enable also the other participants to join the market. And of course, what's also important is the update of Slovenian energy law, also this year. We are planning to implement most of the changes that are in line with the terms and conditions in 2020. And of course, the international cooperation will follow a little bit later in probably 21 or 22, it depends. It's not just up to us. So now I'll go through the three most important ancillary services and to see what are the changes between the periods. I'll start in the past, so 2015, show what will be done at the beginning of next year, and what is prediction for the future. Well, for the FCR, there is a major change. We are switching from obligatory offering of reserve that was not paid to the market-based, and in 2020 it will be just the local market. Only 3 already qualified BSPs will be able to participate. But in later stages, when we join the FCR cooperation, we expect that the liquidity be much better because of the cooperation, and also we are planning to enable inclusion of batteries and most probably also DRDGs in the following years. What's also very important is we changed the qualification rules. Historically, it was only the availability of reserve was only checked during the commissioning, and not after any upgrades or any changes to the generators. But now we have established quite sophisticated new qualification procedure that needs to be repeated every 5 years or any significant change to the devices. And also we have established an online monitoring, checking online the responses, as well as the participation of different providers. Regarding the payment, in the past there was no payment for this service. For 2020 we are planning to go with the pay-as-bid principle, and once we are in the cooperation we will switch to the marginal pricing. About the AFRR, in the past we only had 2 BSPs that were able to provide the capacity for the AFRR. In 2020, with the relaxed rules, we are counting of having 3 to 4 BSPs, and we're there. In the past, there were negotiations about the procurement of capacity, while from 2020 it will be market-based. For the energy, we had some kind of system of yearly bids in the past, a slightly special one, but with 2020 we are going to daily bids, and the principle of payment will be pay-as-bid at the beginning, because will be only on the local market, but later it will probably switch to marginal pricing once the liquidity is big enough. About the reserve offering, in the past it was just the classical two producers, one big one and one tiny one. And in the 2020 we are expecting both of those producers to remain, but we are adding the batteries. We are expecting the share will be roughly 10% of required capacity, and also there will be some DRDG. We are expecting around 5% share offering the service. In the future, we are expecting that the share of classical producers will be reduced based on the interest that the private investors are showing. We think that the battery share will increase considerably during the next few years, and also we think that the RDG share will increase. For the activation, we are switching this year from pro rata activation that is done on the per unit base to the merit order list activation based on the portfolio activation. And of course, later once we join the Picasso, it will be the Picasso merit order list, not the local one. For the qualification, it's actually quite similar to the primary control. The ability of units to provide the FRR has historically only been checked during commissioning and not after several years of operation. But now we are doing quite thorough qualification before the BSP starts to offer the service. And this qualification needs to be renewed every 5 years or after any major change. Otherwise, I have to say here that we copied quite a lot from APG, to be honest. They have very good qualification process, so we copied what we think was good. If we added something, removed some things, and I have to say that we still have sometimes some comments that APG rules are not as strict in this part of the qualification. But anyway, it's up to the TSO to somehow see what is important for a certain TSO. Regarding the monitoring, we used to have some basic monitoring and post-festum monitoring for also in the past, but we are establishing a slightly more advanced monitoring in 2020 that will of course continue to 2020 plus. About the MFRR, the capacity is, this market is slightly more liquid, has more liquidity, so the procurement of capacity has always been market-based. But the procurement of energy, there were just yearly bids in the past. Now there will be daily bids, and of course the energy only bids for just for the energy without the previously procured capacity. For the payment, we in 2020 we still think that we still plan to use the pay-as-bid principle, but in the future, once joining the MARI, will probably go to marginal pricing. About the market shares, in the past there were mostly classical producers offering the MFR service. There was a small share of DRDG because we started the DRDG integration process in 2013, but it was less than 5%. In 2020, we still expect to rely on the classical producers to provide the most of the reserves. But anyway, we are expecting the DRDG part will be in the 20% range. And we are expecting some batteries also to be included in the tertiary control, even though it's more probable that the batteries will go for the more profitable AFR market. In the future, we are expecting that the share of the classical producers will decrease. The share of batteries will increase somewhat, but what we really think will increase is the RDG's participation and share. Regarding the activation of MFR, we are progressing from we have always done it according to the meritorious list. We are changing the FAT from 15 to 12.5, and the activation with phone has been replaced by the automatic activation signal. For the qualification and for the monitoring, it's quite similar to the AFR. We are establishing new qualification procedure as well as more online and post-festum, more detailed online and post-festum monitoring. So somehow to conclude, more or less, we are trying to make procurement of all capacity market-based, the procurement of energy for the AFR and MFRR on the daily level. The payment will be, at the beginning, it will be the pay-as-bid, and later on the marginal pricing. In the past, reserve has been more or less offered just by classical generation. Now the DRDG is taking a considerable part in the MFR service, while the batteries will make quite a share in the AFR market. And in the future, we just expect the increase of batteries and DRDGs in both services. Qualification and monitoring is getting is getting stricter. And that was it from my side.